So a viewer recently asked me, why is it that Pablo Barn Cat never seems to get shocked by the electrical fence? Even though he seems to love climbing the fence posts and he seems to live atop those fence posts rent-free, he never ever gets shocked by the 8,000 volt electric fence that we have going all the way across our duck and goose yard. Because as most longtime viewers of our channel know, I have been personally shocked by this fence. Ah! Fungada dungada. Oh! Let's do this for safety's sake. Hey, Toby dog. Hey. Hey, buddy. How's it going, pal? Well, Pablo here, he never seems to get shocked by the fence. Like even just now. He climbed up this fence, hopped over the wire, and went over the fence. And he knew that the electricity was off. But how does he do it? Is he impervious to electricity? Is he able to sense when the electricity's on and when the electricity's off? If the fence doesn't shock Pablo, does it not shock other animals either? Well, let me try to clarify this one for you guys. Morning, chickens. Hey, Shakira. Hey, Carmen. How are my chickens doing?
Release the Kraken! Let loose the goose!
It's really quite incredible when you think about it, right? Like we have about a half mile of this wire running across the top of this fence. So basically every part of the fence is covered by it. And we have these insulators that keep the fence off the corner so it never grounds out. And like I've said before, that fence is hot. As I've tested it, it runs somewhere between
21 gigawatts!
7,000 and 8,000 volts of electricity, which like you've seen can practically knock you out cold. So we put this fence in this past summer and fall, and the purpose for it is to create a fenced in area that will protect my ducks and geese and chickens. It lets my guard dog Toby run free, and it keeps most of the predators out. It's 5 feet high, and yeah, smaller things like a weasel could fit through there, but at the end of the day, they're not gonna wanna go through there because we have Toby guarding the grounds. The fence itself is pretty much good enough to keep the coyotes away, and Toby also scares the coyotes away. The reason I have this electrical top wire is actually to deal with 3 different types of predators. One are raccoons, who are less scared of dogs and a little bit more wily, yet they could still easily murder my birds. The other is for the bobcats. Especially before Toby showed up, we had a pretty serious bobcat problem around the farm. I'm always worried that like a bobcat could easily climb this fence and get in. And then the third and probably most important one I'm trying to keep away with the electric top wire are bears.
Oh! Oh! Are you kidding me? Oh!
You know, just like we have a bear in our farm's logo, we have a fair amount of black bear here in northern Vermont. I've picked him up over the years on our trail cameras, and I've even seen a few wandering around every once in a while. And actually, as we were completing the construction of the fence, I even found a black bear testing this thing out to see if he could get over it. You know, a black bear touching their wet nose against that electric top wire is enough to keep them away. But when I put the fence up, Allison was actually quite scared about what if Pablo got shocked by the fence. Without any doubt or question, Pablo Barn Cat is my wife Allison's absolute favorite animal on the farm. You know, at the beginning, at the very start of Goldshaw Farm, Allison was actually the first one to live here. And you know, when she was up here on the farm living all by herself, I realized I needed to get her a companion. And so that's actually when Pablo Barn Cat first arrived on the farm. And you know, when Allison was up here all alone, and it was a harsh winter, and we adopted Pablo Barn Cat from a rather tough living situation, Allison's heart opened up for that cat, and they absolutely fell in love and became so close. And so when I was talking about installing this electric fence, Allison was terrified for Pablo. Good morning, silky chickens. You know, on a certain level, I wasn't exactly sure what to expect. I never had a permanent fence like this with an electric wire like this with cats. In the past on our farm, we've used poultry netting, and Pablo would really stay away from the poultry netting, but he couldn't quite climb the poultry netting quite like he climbs the fence posts over here. Like, as we were building this fence, he spent the entire time living atop these fence posts, and he absolutely loves them because they're this perch that gives him this great view of the farm. And we weren't sure if he was going to be smart enough to know about this top wire, and we were worried about that first learning experience he might have where he gets shocked by 8,000 volts.
Don't tase me, bro! Don't tase me!
So when I first installed the fence and started to watch it very closely, and one of the things that I noticed was he would actually climb up this fence post about 3/4 of the way, and if the fence was on, he'd get about up to here, and then he would like stop and freeze. And he'd like check it out, almost sense and discover that the fence was turned on, and then he'd climb back down and go away. And to me, seeing this behavior was like a revelation, right? Like, wow, is this like magic? Does this cat have superpowers that he can detect and sense the electricity?
I see everything.
And well, the answer is that's basically what the case is. Allow me to ditch the hyperbole and show you what I mean. As you saw me turn off the fence in the beginning of the video, let me turn it back on. Reconnect this guy. So I have this little voltage meter. It tells me whether or not the fence is on. So you can see it here. I'm close to it, I'm close to it, I'm touching it. Nothing's happening. It just is the red light indicating that I've got the power on to test. Once I flip that switch, I put it to the fence, boom, you can see it, it's going. So it's a pulse electrical, so it's not a constant charge that you're seeing here. That's why it keeps going off and on, off and on. But the interesting thing is, right, if I actually bring it close to the fence but don't touch the fence, what happens? You can see it's giving off a little bit of a pulse. Closer I get, and then once I start touching it, it starts pulsing. But then if I pull it away just a little bit, I'm still getting a little phantom current. So in reality, animals can actually sense whether or not there's an electrical current. And so at this point, you'll even see Pablo is hanging out on the new garden fence. He's not bothering to stand on that fence because he knows that the electric current is charged. As I've observed him and watched him work, what I've noticed is it's his whiskers are the things that he seems to use to sense the electricity. Like, the closer he gets to it, the more he can sense that there's that electro field going on. And that's when he backs away and knows that it's danger. And I've even noticed a pattern that when the actual electrical fence is on, Pablo will try to slip through the gate over here versus trying to go over the fence, versus like when you just saw him this morning, right? He was climbing over the fence with impunity. He didn't care. And just so you know, it's not just reserved to cats. Animals in general are very sensitive to electric fields. Like my neighbor Fran from across the street, he tells me this story about a cow that would always refuse to go to a certain part of the barn because there was once a time when the wire from the electric fence was grounding out into the ground over there. And even after he had it fixed, the cow still refused to go over there. Kind of crazy, right? So one other thing you guys might notice is Toby's ice cube house I've actually taken outside of his shed. I've tried and tried and tried to get him comfortable, and he even uses it when it's really, really cold, but I've noticed he just doesn't like it. So I have opted to give up on the ice cube house and go for a plan B. I'm just using this shed. I'm gonna start adding more and more layers around it, more plywood and stuff, just to give him a little bit more insulation. And I put a ton of straw on the ground as well. A lot of commenters have asked, why don't I give Toby a blanket or something inside his house? The reason is you don't want to use blankets or towels or anything like that for warmth for animals when they're outside. Those blankets have a tendency to just soak up the moisture and really create some real problems and actually make the animals colder. That's why straw is the perfect bedding medium for animals when they're out in the cold. So far, this has actually been working out pretty great. Toby's using it all the time now. The chickens have a tendency to get in there too during the day, which is, I guess, okay. I think I'm stuck with this house for this winter, but it's not gonna be the long-term solution. I've been actually starting to dream up what the long-term solution's gonna be, and given the fact that I'm getting a second livestock guardian dog this spring, as well as the fact that I wanna add a couple more barn cats, I'm actually picturing building like a little tiny mini barn right about here. And it would be a house for Toby and the puppy, and I would actually also try to raise 2 barn cats to treat this area right here as home base. Lately, I've been noticing a little bit of rodent problems around where I feed the birds. It's because they spill their feed and leave it on the ground, and then that attracts things like mice and voles. And Pablo does a little bit of work getting rid of those guys, but overall, he's really a barn cat who's focused on the barn and the house. He's not focused on this area over here. And so I think I want to try to get like 2 kittens and raise them up right over here and train them to have this whole area be their domain. So that will also be a project I undertake probably in the spring or summer. But right now, because the ground is so frozen and we're covered in snow, I can't really build anything over here. And so I'm just gonna wait until the spring and then start building. But right now I'm just gonna keep kind of conceptualizing and dreaming and planning on what the barn could look like. If you guys have any suggestions or have seen any cool like livestock guardian dog sheds out there, please let me know down in the comments. I'd love to see them. Come on, Pablo, let's go get you some food. You know, it's funny, if you look at our roof right now, it's a little precarious. So the way our roof is designed, it's a standing seam roof. And what's really nice about a standing seam roof is it prevents damage to your roof when the water freezes and refreezes, and it can create ice dams. And then it's also designed to let the snow slide right off. And now what typically happens is the roof from the top layer falls onto the second layer roof, and it sort of builds up and then it falls down again. And eventually, yeah, we can't even get up our front steps. But it's okay, it's winter, we don't use them a lot anyway. There's been times on certain winters where the snow drifts have piled up so much that you could easily touch the roof from the snowdrift down below. This year though, it's been a rather mild winter still so far, but we do have this one big snowdrift that's been building up, and it's starting to hang pretty precariously. I mean, look at it, right? It's kind of nuts. Look how far off the roof it is. I actually think I want to knock it down so I don't risk hurting somebody like Pablo. So I'm going to give this a shot right now. Let's see how it goes. I was kind of expecting it all to come down in one gigantic chunk, but that was probably a safer and easier way to break it up. That'll be good enough for now. Hopefully it'll slide off as the sun comes out today. If you guys are curious about Pablo Barn Cat's origin story, I'm going to leave this video right here. You can check it out and find out where he came from and his background. It's kind of a sordid tale, but it makes me really glad that he ended up here on our farm. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in that video. Thanks.